Hey everyone, it's Taylor Ray from the 1P versus 2P podcast. My co-host Ryan and I both decided that this past week was kind of a slow news week in the gaming world. So instead, what we decided to do is sort of curate other content we had on the site. And Ryan actually wrote a great article on the very recent Oculus Rift pre-order messaging issue. He had a great little editorial about this news. And instead of our normal episode format, I'm actually going to read you what he wrote for our site. I know you're probably rolling your eyes because you're thinking, oh, he's going to read us something. But actually, I thought it made for great audio as I was reading his article. So hope you enjoy it. Let us know what your thoughts are. Tweet at us at 1pvs2p_podcast. You can also email us, podcast at 1pvs2p.com. Let us know what you think about Ryan's opinion piece on Oculus VR. So here it is. It's titled, VR Gets Real as the Rift Divides.
Just over 3 years ago, we launched a Kickstarter to create the first Oculus Rift development kit. The goal of the Kickstarter was to create great virtual reality, to give developers the tools that they needed to start experimenting with VR. First, we shipped DK1, then DK2, and now we're on the eve of launching the Rift.
On January 6th, Oculus Rift consumer model pre-orders opened up for $599. The highly anticipated virtual reality package includes the headset, a sensor, cables, a remote, an Xbox One controller, and 2 bundled games, which are Lucky's Tale, a third-person character platformer, and Eve Valkyrie, a space cockpit shooting game. Oculus presumes you own a high-end PC that can run the Rift. In terms of specifications, they are lofty requirements, to say the least. A high-end graphics card and 4 USB ports on top of a middle to high-end processor. Helpfully, Oculus is also selling Oculus-ready PCs for $1,500, which is only a little more than you might spend building a custom PC equipped to handle VR. The Oculus Touch half-moon controllers, though, are sold separately and won't be available until sometime later this year. The price is admittedly both high and low for breakthrough technology. For your average game-buying consumer, $599 plus the building a worthy PC cost of admission is a price point higher than buying a current generation gaming console, or possibly all 3 major consoles all together.
This year is going to be incredible for VR. Touch is launching later this year, and Gear VR is in the hands of people everywhere.
So
for high-end hobbyists interested in the future of VR, demand is high, but early adoption is cheap compared to new technology expectations. For context, a middling 4K HD TV sells for around $1,000, despite a lack of primetime 4K content. Since Rift is the first commercially available VR hardware, there is no competitive pricing in the market right now. It's rumored that Oculus is selling these headsets at cost, meaning the price only covers the cost of manufacturing, with little to no profit for Oculus. However, it's also important to note that
Kickstarter backer that pledged for a DK1 is going to be getting a Rift for free
as a reward for backing Oculus in the first place 3 years ago, a cost the company is probably subsidizing with new sales. As for Rift's upcoming competition, a lot is unknown about hardware pricing. We do know a few details. PlayStation VR will require both a PS4 console and a headset. Valve and HTC's Vive will have similar high computing requirements to the Rift and require you to have a room big enough to accommodate walking movement while using it. A rift, if you will, between 2 futures of gaming is forming. One for those with VR and one for those without.
Virtual reality really is the future of entertainment. Again, this is the final platform. We think it's going to be something that the entire world's going to enjoy, far beyond just gaming.
Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment because I want to talk about our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/1pvs2p. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player of choice. For you guys, our listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free, that's right, it's truly free, trust me, I've done it myself, 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can listen to great gaming audiobooks like The Ultimate History of Video Games. I highly recommend that one. Console Wars, Sega, Nintendo, and the Battle That Defined a Generation, which is actually going to be adapted as a movie by Seth Rogen. And Masters of Doom, how two guys created an empire and transformed pop culture. I love that one. It talks about the founders, the guys at id Software, went from being this really small basement operation, and it created this massive hit in Doom back in the day. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/1pvs2p. Again, that's audibletrial.com/1pvs2p for your free audiobook. Trust us, it's truly free. All right, let's get back to the rest of the story. Investors in VR are hoping most players will fall into the have VR group. Following a combined $6.1 billion in investment in the sector over the last 3 years, investors are eager to see some initial proof of concept, hoping that consumers will quickly take to the new technology. Research firm Superdata Research also predicts the VR industry will generate $5.1 billion this year alone, with approximately 38.9 million consumers as an install base. Quote, following a combined $6.1 billion in investment in the sector over the last 3 years, investors are eager to see some initial proof of concept, hoping that consumers will quickly take to the new technology. This, according to a research report by Superdata on January 6th of 2016. The have-nots will be stuck in our old world of home consoles and games, DLC, free-to-play schemes, esports, and season passes, the market of which seems to be more tenuous every day. Sony has sold 35.9 million PS4s to date, and Nintendo has sold somewhere above 10 million Wii U's. Microsoft won't share their current Xbox One sales numbers, but there are about 39 million Xbox Live users. These numbers dwarf how well home consoles have done worldwide in previous generations. The 360, PS3, Wii generation of consoles sold approximately 270 million consoles combined worldwide. The Xbox PS2 GameCube generation sold about 215 million consoles. Prior to that, consoles sold about 150 million worldwide. Notably, Steam made $3.5 billion last year in sales, just on paid downloadable games. But it's uncertain whether Valve's VR positioning will help or hurt the overall PC game market. This recent sales history also ignores gaming's last dabble with VR in the 1990s, the most famous example of which was Nintendo's Virtual Boy, which sold a paltry 350,000 in 1995 before Nintendo deemed it a failure.
Enter the unique world of virtual gameplay with Nintendo Virtual Boy. The first three-dimensional stereo immersive 32-bit video game system ever. Virtual Boy is so advanced it can't be viewed on conventional TV or LCD screens. Nintendo Virtual Boy, a 3D game for a 3D world.
Since then, a number of VR-like experiences and peripherals have been sold, none of which have captured the fervor VR commands today. That much was obvious by Oculus's extremely successful Kickstarter campaign and Facebook's buyout. For his part, Oculus founder and inventor Palmer Luckey is keenly aware of the two audiences his product is trying to appeal to. In a tweet on the same day Oculus Rift pre-orders went up, Luckey tweeted out that, as per blog post, Rift plus PC bundles are starting at $1,499. You might be able to build one on your own cheaper, but it's a good option for normal people.
today's high-end devices are tomorrow's all devices, and we get to ride that wave, and without having to do too much of that work ourselves, we'll do different work. I do think we'll get to a point in a few years where we will be able to power this stuff, maybe a few years is too soon, but 5 years or whatever it is, where you can power this stuff off of basically any mainstream computing device that someone would have.
Proponents and critics of VR alike will squabble over whether the economy of VR can sustain itself, but developers are already experimenting with the costly medium. Epic Games founder and chief executive Tim Sweeney said the hardest part of VR game designers wasn't funding, but creating a compelling user experience with realism. Quote, when you're looking at a computer screen, you have a high tolerance for cartoony artwork, but when you're in it, it just feels wrong, Tim Sweeney said in a New York Times interview back in November of 2015. At the level of investment spent on it, VR technology will need to get past its artificiality to succeed. However, there will also be a large audience that's emotionally invested in VR's success. It may have been responsible for its pre-release hype, but some can't afford to play these games. That's troubling for products purported to be advancing video games. Giant Bomb editor Austin Walker summarized this sentiment in his reaction to the pricing. In a tweet on the same day again as the Oculus Rift pre-orders, Austin Walker said, the frustrating bit isn't that Oculus is overcharging. It's the feeling of being priced out of a device that's been positioned as the future. For all the money pumped into VR compared to traditional platforms, the promise of better gaming experiences is worth clamoring for. However, its economic impact on the medium and the wealth dividing its potential customer base is worth reevaluating. Is leaving behind the larger part of the gaming audience worth the cost of progress?
So thanks for making a pledge and helping us change gaming forever. We'll see you in the Rift.
Thanks again to my co-host Ryan for writing such a great piece on the Oculus Rift pre-order news. And thanks for listening. If you liked our show, please subscribe to us and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also follow us on Twitter at, like I said before, at 1pvs2p_podcast, or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/1pvs2p. You can also just download our episodes directly as MP3 files on our site, 1pvs2p.com. But you can also listen to us on your favorite podcast app, like TuneIn, Player FM, whatever you want. You can even subscribe through a podcatcher, through RSS on our site. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.